Now, I'm Con Griffin. I've spoke to you here in this gym before quite a few times, but today I want to speak about my great friend Mick Murphy. Now, Mick Murphy in 1958 won the Ross Thornton against all odds. He had one bike and all sorts of stuff happened to him that could happen to him along the way. Most of it now is known by a lot of people like Bantier and that sort of stuff. But Mick, long before he started cycling, he was a man that got involved in like circus acts and things. There was a fellow next door to him. He was Burke was his name, and he was to travel around the fairgrounds, and he used to do stunts. And Mick would climb up a ladder that he would put on his own chin, and Mick would go up to the top and he would wave to the people, and he learned other little things there too. Stunt, I mean, like walking on his hands, and he could do tumbles, and he learned all that as a very small boy. He also had a brother that was with him, and he used to box in an old place there in Carsavine. And his brother, he told me years and years later, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit now, he told me that his brother, when he grew up and he became 16, he went off to Milry to join the monks. And I know about Milry. My own mother came from just down the road, and she was in Tipperary, but when she turned to the left and walk up to go to Mass in Milry, she'd be in Waterford. If she turned to her left when she went out her door and walked down the hill, she'd be in Newcastle in her own county, County Tipperary. So my mother knew all about, she knew all about Milry, and this was the silent order, this was the monks. And he told me that his brother came back, and he was all upset and not himself. And the mother and father said to him, you have to go back to the holy monks. They're looking after you now. You belong to them now. So they threw him out, and he went out, and shortly after he died of pneumonia. So Mick was an only son, and he went on. Now I'm going to get into the story of our friendship, and I'll come back to Mick again afterwards. But I'll show you now what kind of friends we were. So we'll go around here to this one here. We'll start with this one here. Now this is Mick outside the new houses was called in. That was built in 1939. Mick was telling me about that when we were in. He said the war just had started, and his father, he remembers him well, saying the war is on. So the war had just began when Mick went into that house. Now this picture here was being taken by John Heffernan, a man that made a documentary about Butti Sugro. So he asked me, and he looked me up on the internet. He found my all my story there, how I was Butti's minder and all that kind of stuff. So he got my phone number and he phoned me here in Ryland. And he came and he'd done a lot of this documentary about Butti Sugro was done here in this gym. And myself, and I said to him, we have to speak to a great friend of mine that knows Butti even better than I do. I said, because he's the man that introduced me to Butti Sugro. So I said, that man is Mick Murphy. I said, and he's probably the greatest man that ever lived in Ireland as a sportsman. He achieved great things in his life. And I show you, have I got it? Oh yes, well, I skip, yeah, we go to, Oh yeah, yes. Now come here to this one. This is the next time I met Mick Murphy. He was in London in the Foresters Amateur Wrestling Club when I joined, and that's Mick there. He was a welterweight, about 74 kgs, and down here, this is a picture where I'm actually in. Now that's me there. I was 90 kgs wrestler at that time, so I was the heaviest man in that picture. This here is Bill Parker. Bill Parker was our instructor, and he was married to a Kerry woman. He loved Ireland, and he travelled the Ring of Kerry every year for his for summer holidays. That's the man anyway. The rest of them, well, Teddy Carroll isn't there. Okay, come here. Now this is Mick when he was in his prime, and he won the Al Jacobs Trophy. I was in his corner that night. He was a welterweight open championship, and he won that lot outright, and the trophy is the Al Jacobs Memorial Trophy. Now here again we've got myself is still taking up the same position, and this man here was Ali. He was we used to call him back in the old days, back then, they were called Persia, because Persia was the old name for Iran, but he would be Iranian today, if you like, in this time. But now I'm finished with, like, I also, I was in Mick's corner when he wrestled Peter Amy of Scotland. He was a Scottish champion, and Mick got his silver medal in London. Peter Amy, he just pipped him by 1 point, and myself and Bill Parker was in his thing. Let's go back here to this picture. What did I do with it? What did I do with Cambridge? No. Oh, here. Sorry about that. I'm fumbling, but fumbling or not. This man here, anybody of my age or near enough that ever went to the pictures, is Ken Richmond, and he was a great pal, and he took over from Bill Parker, died very young of a heart attack. And this man here was an Olympic silver medalist for Great Britain, and that's the biggest, best wrestling, that was ever for a heavyweight wrestler in Britain, because Britain didn't get a look in, or America even, in the heavyweights. The heavyweights were all won by the Russians, and they dominated the heavyweights for years. But this man was my instructor at the end. He used to teach me wrestling when I became 90 kgs, and I was very hard to match up, because you can't wrestle somebody three or 4 stone lighter than yourself. So this man was 18 stone. He died age 80, and that's not long, as I said, gone but not forgotten. There was 2 other men that struck the gong before him. One was Billy Weismore, the Tarzan, that fella, he struck the gong, and there was another one, Billy Khan, from English boxer. Billy Bomber Wells, that was this was the last man to strike the gong, and he's dead quite a couple of years now. But that's it. I want to get back now to talking about Mick's later days, when he went downhill a bit, and this was a picture of Mick here, the way he lived. There was a lady called to him, and she used to give him what you call Meals on Wheels. And here we have down here again another Mick standing at his door with a big smile on him. That was for a documentary. Matter of fact, that documentary, he mentions me, but he only says Con. He doesn't say Con Griffin or anything like that. And he explains about how we done not only just amateur wrestling, but professional wrestling. And 'twas I introduced Mick to professional wrestling. I was wrestling and in fairgrounds and things like that. My own children came and watched me wrestle in the fairgrounds, even in Roundwood Park and other places, Ealing, Broadway, all over London. I wrestled and boxed in the fairgrounds, and I taught Mick. He taught me how to wrestle real amateur, and then I turned the tables because I had got myself a 20 by 20 mat, and I taught him on that mat in my own gym like I have here now, and Mick became a great wrestler. Matter of fact, I remember Mick, and I employed him. It was in Ladbroke Grove. That was he was a bricklayer by trade. This man, in his young days, with me, working for me, he earned £1,800 oats a day, and that time that was equivalent to a striker for the top divisions in London, like people at Arsenal and people, things like that. That's the kind of money this man earned when he was young. Money meant nothing to me. Come this way now. Here we are, Christine. This is Mick's funeral. Down here, this is the cortege. This is them walking through the fields at the back of Mick's house. And when he was buried, there was no words and there was no priest, because Mick wasn't, it wasn't because of COVID or anything like that. This is 3 years ago. And the only words were spoken when Mick was laid into the ground was, the boys of Ballycorda were out hunting for the wren. And them words weren't even said. That was played on one of these little squeeze boxes, and nothing else. This man never drew a penny from the Irish government on pension. He took no pension. He had great dignity, and he was a credit to Ireland. Not like the fellas that were around 10 years ago that went bankrupt the country and then bailed out by the government. Now here, we've come here. Now this is the very latest picture. This was done by the Examiner, the Irish Examiner, as it's called now. They covered most stuff here. They covered about how Mick was in the hiring fairs, and about his drinking of cow's blood. I know that he done all that, but me and Mick, we had great times in London. We dined in the best restaurants. We dined in the Apollo in Kilburn High Road, which was a top restaurant, and Mick would favourite meal was chicken Maryland, and mine was a steak. And myself and Mick had great fun. Mick went to Germany then, and he wrestled in Germany, and he learned how to speak German. And the Germans had fantastic time for him altogether. They thought he was the greatest thing because he had the 2 cauliflower ears and the big beard. And they taught him in the fun fairs, just as I was. They told him how to bang and make out that he was hitting one of them. And he'd do that bang. And Mick said he was laughing, and he said, the big monster, he said, ran away and went down on one knee and said, no, leave me alone, and all that kind of thing, and ran in. And that was the kind of showmanship that he had it himself, account of his own young days doing the circus tricks, because he was a great entertainment, and he was a fantastic man in the dressing room, and everybody loved him in the Foresters. And it's a shame that he has not taught him. I think of him in the same breath as Tom Crean, the forgotten hero. And I feel that I'm a bit like that way myself, but I'm not telling my story today, I'm telling Mick's story. Okay, thank you very much, and I hope I've done Mick justice.